Viewers, I don't know about you. I'm Dr. JWA. I watched this case and was anticipating how this would work out. Apparently the judge of this case was the same judge that used the law legally to incriminate Sal Grover. She's now used it to incriminate Pauline Hanson. The law is the law, let's not argue that. But when the law changes character in the courtroom, how can somebody, this is my question to the Commonwealth, make the statement and think that it's not racist within itself? I cannot mourn the leader of a racist empire. Now, Mehreen Faruqi cannot mourn the leader of a racist empire, but she'll come and live in it and have all the benefits and blessings and wonderful things that come with it. Isn't that comment a contradiction within itself based on the complaint that she made against Pauline Hanson? Faruqi's statement, and I'm not even going to read it, give her the pleasure of that, can be interpreted differently depending on the legal context. Under Australian law, the analysis generally focuses on whether the statement's protected political expression, or whether it's defamatory, or whether it could amount to unlawful racial vilification. Now, apparently she's entitled to her opinion of the entire Commonwealth. Now, admittedly, Pauline Hanson has offended Mehreen Faruqi and she's followed through with that. But Faruqi offended a whole Commonwealth, an entire Commonwealth. And not only that, one of the most gracious and what could you say, honourable leaders that we've ever had, Queen Elizabeth II. She wasn't perfect, nobody's saying that, but she was damn well right, worth our honour. She protected this nation. And, as this is on its face a political and historical opinion, right? Faruqi has made a political and historical opinion that apparently is legitimate against the Commonwealth itself. It expresses a refusal to mourn not just a public figure, but a pillar that held the Commonwealth. It's a criticism of the British Empire and Australia itself, the Commonwealth, an assessment of colonial history, which isn't perfect, but it improved Australia, and a moral judgment about imperialism, of which Queen Elizabeth practiced none thereof. Australian courts have consistently recognised that robust political opinion, even if offensive or deeply controversial, is generally afforded strong protection within ordinary law. And it's not unlawful simply because others find it insulting. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because Mehreen Faruqi can insult potentially the entire Commonwealth and everything it stands for and its whole establishment, and yet be individually offended by one person. I mean, Pauline Hanson spoke on behalf of millions, not just herself, millions, against this Greens radical senator, right, who offended our past Queen. She's gone. Okay. And has taken that on board, and somehow, just like men or women, the courts have decided that one person's offence is more important than the offence of a majority of the Commonwealth that would feel the same way as Pauline Hanson did. The statement does not identify an individual living person, the Queen Elizabeth II's deceased. And under Australian law, a deceased person cannot genuinely sue for defamation. I would have loved the royal family to step in here and said, hang on a minute, who do you think you are? And the statement also criticises an empire, the whole empire, rather than making factual allegations against identifiable living individuals. Accordingly, defamation would generally not arise. Now, let's look at the racial discrimination law. Under Part 2A of the Racial Discrimination Act 1975, particularly S18C, the key question would be, is the conduct reasonably likely to offend, insult, humiliate or intimidate because of race, colour or national or ethnic origin? Is the conduct directed at people because of their race? Ladies and gentlemen, I think what Mehreen Faruqi said by percentage is far outweighs Pauline Hanson's pushback in defence of the royal family, particularly the deceased Queen Elizabeth II. Here, the criticisms directed primarily towards the entire British Empire as a political institution, colonial history, and the monarchy. Political institutions are not protected racial groups under S18C. The statement does not target people because they are ethnically British or white. Instead, it criticises historical imperial conduct. But does that make the statement right? Consequently, it would generally be unlikely to contravene S18C. Now, is it fact or opinion? Is what Faruqi said fact or opinion? Legally, much of the statement is evaluative opinion. I cannot mourn is clearly a personal opinion. Racist empire is a value judgment, right? A value judgment on what premise, a negative premise, which would motivate anybody to say, well, you're living in this racist empire. You've chosen to come here and establish yourself quite, what would you say, profitably in this racist empire. So there's something about the racist empire that attracts you. Couldn't be all that bad. And built on stolen lives, land and wealth. My grandmother was one of the stolen generation, and they definitely did not have this attitude. And that's a historical characterization that remains a subject of scholarly and political debate. Well, it's a personal fact for me. My grandparents did not have this attitude towards Queen Elizabeth. As a matter of fact, one of the kings came to Australia. I forget which one it was, but they went to Coonamble and my relatives chauffeured that particular king around. Now, courts generally distinguish between verifiable factual assertions and rhetorical political opinions. Overall, legal interpretation of this statement. A court would likely, depending on what's going down on that day with the judge and everything, characterise the statement as a political expression. Why so? I think it's a personal one. An historical commentary, I think it's an historical attack. A moral opinion, well, then you've got to work out what level of morality. And criticism of institutions rather than racial abuse directed at individuals. Whether the historical claims are accurate is a separate question from whether the expression is lawful. If analysed in light of Hanson versus Faruqi, The statement resembles the type of political expression examined in Hanson versus Faruqui. However, there is an important distinction. This statement it criticises the entire empire, all of colonialism, and all of the historical institution of Australia. So it does not tell members of a racial or ethnic group to leave Australia. And it's interesting how Faruqi can completely offend the entire Commonwealth and choose to live within something that she says is, well, you read the words. You've got to be careful of these radical leftists because they'll come after you, whether they're right or wrong. See, my point's this. Hanson offended one individual, right, who started this, who criticised and attacked the Commonwealth, which she's chose to live in. So she's not telling a radical or ethnic group to leave Australia. Why would she? She's staying in it herself, obviously out of sufferance. Nor does it directly exclusively use exclusionary language at people because of their race or ethnic origin. And for that reason, it would generally be regarded as political commentary rather than racial abuse. I don't agree with that. I think Mehreen Faruqi offended the entire Commonwealth, or a majority percentage of it. And apparently, because it's not racial abuse under the law, it makes it substantially less likely to attract liability under the Racial Discrimination Act. And whether a particular law court would agree always depends on the premise context, or the precise context, audience, and surrounding circumstances. This is part 1 of Queen Elizabeth II a Racist. How dare you, Mehreen Faruqi? I'll see you in the next episode.